So hey guys, the series name is What If Naruto Betrayed and Become the King? So let's start the series. What? No and no and oh. Naruto was hysterical, not that you could blame him, he just found out that he was banished. Naruto really should have expected it though, he was the demon child after all. Ever since he was little that was all he ever was, he was just a demon. But then he met Sarutobi, bless his soul, then Jiraiya, then Tsunade. He always did have Kurama though, even if he never told the old man. But nothing could last forever, it was just his luck. First it was Sarutobi, then Sasuke, Jiraiya and now Tsunade, even though it's for a different reason. Sasuke came back about 6 months ago, when Naruto was still on his training trip, saying that he needed more power, and that he realized that since Itachi as well as Orochimaru got strong in Konoha then so could he. Jiraiya died, which hit him extremely hard since they were family. They knew practically everything about each other, including her real gender, being in her real form during the trip. Now Tsunade was in a coma after pain attacked and he was getting banished? It just didn't seem right. Do not cross us, demon boy. We should have done this years ago. Nobody wants you. You are nothing but a demon, a thorn in someone's hand. You have 24 hours to leave or the ANB will make sure you can't bother anybody else, a council member said. Most of them nodded in agreement. They were all the civilian council though. The clan heads were too busy with clan business after the attack dealing with the aftermath. But they already voted. Naruto had no choice. He just stood there shell-shocked. But I protected you from pain. He drawled out, confused. Kohora smirked. But if it wasn't for you then he never would have attacked. It wasn't for you then we would still have our beloved 4th Hokage, as well as the 3rd. Don't even get me started on Jiraiya or Tsunade. After all, it is all your fault the Gama Sannin died, and Senjuheim is as good as that. You always say that you protect your precious people, but you only hurt them. Naruto had no words, he knew that everything they said was true, he really did. But he couldn't help but feel pissed, he never wanted to hurt them. If they knew anything about him, anything at all, they would bow on their knees. He thought it was for the best. But he should have listened. Kurama, Lord 3rd, Jiraiya, he should have known. But even though he was sad, he knew it wouldn't do any good. Nobody really knew him. They all thought he was an idiot after all. But deep down, he found it funny. What was the point of ever trying to get through with these people? He looked down, his bangs covering his eyes, but he could feel the council's smirks. They finally got him, the wretched demon, out of their village. He laughed, confusing the council. They shifted in discomfort the longer and harder he laughed. Naruto looked back up and wiped a stray tear. Whether from sadness, humor, or him being pissed off they couldn't tell, but they were now scared. He clapped his hands together. The only person who knew him in this village was Tsunade. He didn't blame her though. This wasn't her fault. He sighs, almost looking happy. Well, congrats, you get your wish after a long 15 years. I'm gone, okay. I'll be gone by midnight. He bows full on smirking now. Just know I am glad I'm leaving. Hope you know who it is that you just lost though. I will not come back. Even if you bow on your knees, I am free. And so are you. He didn't even look to see the looks of shock, confusion, or horror when they fully realized what they have done. XXXXXXXXX. What now, Kurama? Naruto asked, walking through the village, ignoring both the looks of disgust and awe. Well, you finally get to be the real you now. I am sorry that they did this to you though, Kurama said guiltily. Naruto just sighed. It was gonna happen sooner or later. I only stayed because of my heritage and the few who knew the truth. God, can you imagine any of their reactions if they knew any of the truth? The fox just laughs. I guess that it is true. But I really am sorry. Naruto cuts the connection, not knowing how to deal with this. She was really being banished. After everything, it was over, just like that. Naruto knew that she was hated, not like she exactly liked the village either, not after everything that it had done to her. She talked with Jiraiya about not returning, but he asked her to give it another chance. For his and Tsunade's sake, she agreed, but honestly didn't care. She would leave quietly, she wouldn't cry over it. What did crying ever do for her? Naruto rested her forehead on her apartment door, thinking about what she would do now. She laughed when she thought about what Tsunade's reaction would be to all this. So pissed, she snorted. The council would be in for a treat. She knew that it would be about another week or so for her to wake up. She opened the door and looked around. A photo of Team 7, her dad's kunai, that she knew how to use surprisingly. More photos. She paused at one of her and Itachi. She walked over, picking it up and back onto her bed. She was always a genius, she just never showed it. She could have graduated when she was 6, the council just always shut it down, not believing that she could do it. Hence, the idiocy mask. Itachi was her best friend, her first friend. He knew that she was actually a girl, plus they trained together. She put the photo back onto the desk and walked into the bathroom. It was about 11 in the afternoon, so she had time to take a shower. Taking off a seal bracelet, she studied herself in the mirror. She was about 5 feet 6 inches with a slender figure. She had about C cups with her muscles visible, but not like a bodybuilder. It suited her. She still had blue eyes, but they were a deep indigo with hints of dark purple. She had her golden hair that rivaled the sun, especially when the sun reflected a reddish tint. It reached her mid-back. Stepping into the shower, she just let the water sprinkle her, deep in thought. She soon decided that she would head over to Suna after she left for good. After all, Gaara was one of the very few who knew that she was actually a female. When she finished her shower, she put her blow-dried hair into a messy bun, putting on a white loose t-shirt and black denim shorts that ended mid-thigh. She started to pack. She frowned when she turned to the rest of the photos. She had been forced into looking and acting male after an incident when she was younger. Nobody had questioned it. They hadn't even cared. Her friends, if she could call them that, didn't even know she had boobs. Regardless, she laughed as she thought about their reactions if they ever found out. Naruto folded her bed back into the wall after she packed up all the blankets. She put the rest of her photos and keepsakes into a box, only keeping a few ones that meant a lot. Her bedroom was finished. Walking into her training room, she sealed everything from swords to motivational posters. Not really, but you get the point. About 2.5 hours she was all packed. It was kind of funny. Everybody expected her to be the idiot. They all thought her crap was all over along with dozens of ramen cups. That was why they always turned down the offer to hang out at her place. She scoffed. Nobody ever actually asked her what her favorite food was. If they ever went through the effort to ask, they would be surprised when it definitely wasn't ramen. Soon enough her apartment was packed, taking the garbage out as well. Walking into the kitchen, she placed the second to last box along the wall. There were only a few a room, so for an apartment that only had 4 rooms, there weren't many boxes. Going over to the table, she sat down. Over the next couple hours, she wrote everybody letters. She couldn't help but cry or laugh as she wrote a few of them. How little they actually knew about her. Like with Hinata, sorry but I'm a girl, and I'm straight, or Sakura was her favorite. She hated her with deep, burning passion. Just the academy alone, Kurama had to calm her down so often. Sorry Sakura. Only trying to be nice. Not everybody is obsessed with another person like you and your Uchiha. That got Kurama to laugh. She couldn't tell whose was harder to write to though. Between Tsunade and Sasuke, she figured that it had been long enough for Sasuke to be in the dark. She really wished that she could be there for him. He read it. The truth about the Uchiha clan. She just hoped that he wouldn't be too hard on Itachi. They have both been through so much. She would have told him in person but knew that he wouldn't let her go once she started to talk. She put everybody's letter and or other items in a box, but she kept Sasuke's and Tsunade's out. She reached over to the other end of the table, grabbing a photo that had 3 people in it. It was in the Uchiha's gardens. They were all red and white with an occasional yellow rose. They were all on a picnic blanket. Itachi was leaning against a tree smiling. As he looked at Naruto, who was giving Sasuke his birthday present, they were all so happy that day. It was about 6 months before Itachi's mission, before the massacre that had changed everything. She put the letter on top of the tape box. She sat down for a minute, not wanting to continue. She let out a shaky breath and slowly untied the first Hokage's necklace. So much for being Hokage now. She thought. She never really expected to become Hokage. Not really. Just banished? It almost seemed too much, for the little bad she did to the village. She put the necklace in Tsunade's envelope on top of Sasuke's and wiped her tears. She would miss those two especially. She stood up suddenly and laughed shakily. If only they knew, she thought dryly. She grabbed her backpack and threw open the door, slamming it shut, not bothering to lock it on the way out. 3 days later, Naruto huffed as she walked into Suna. She was surprised at the amount of respect they gave her. She did take longer to get there, but it wasn't like she had anything better to do. She smiled softly as she shook her hair free of sand. She followed the guard to the Kage's tower. She was happy that people recognized her from her previous visits, from her travels with Jiraiya. She thanked the guard and knocked on the door. She heard a muffled come in, and entered. When she entered she seemed to break even more when she saw Gaara's confused look. Standing there she had to wonder what she had been thinking. She didn't want Suna to declare war on the Leaf. They didn't even know about her banishment. Naruto? What are you doing here? Gaara asked, confusion swimming in his eyes. Taking his golden-haired friend into account, he noticed two things that made him frown. 1. She was crying, or trying not to. 2. She was missing her headband. He dropped his pen onto the floor when he realized what has happened to his best friend. Questions raging in his head but didn't speak. He stood, bracing his palms on his desk as he watched her sadly. He wasn't a social person. He didn't know what to say or do in this situation. They just stood, staring at each other for many minutes. Naruto sniffled. Hey Gaara, she said as she patted her leg. He nodded and signaled for her to sit down. She slumped in her chair while the redhead went to talk to his guards outside. Do not bother us for the day. I'm going out. The guards nodded and he went back inside. Gaara's heart clenched when he saw her with her arms on her legs, gripping her head. He slowly walked over to her and knelt down. I'm going to go change. I'll be back then we'll talk, she nodded. A few minutes later Gaara came back in a black t-shirt and brown ANBU pants. With a blood-red cloak, he picked up her backpack and shunned them to an ice cream shop. It was expensive, but he knew that she loved it. Gaara got a strawberry and caramel sundae, while Naruto got vanilla and hot fudge. He stayed quiet even though she stopped crying a few minutes ago. He debated what to say, then just put it bluntly. What happened and who kicked you out? Naruto finished licking the chocolate off her spoon and sighed. Jiraiya died. What? Gaara, very uncharacteristically, yelled. 45 minutes later. So I packed up and came to say hello, Naruto finished with a flick of her spoon, smiling sardonically. Gaara just sat wide-eyed thinking about what he was just told. They were silently eating their ice cream for a few minutes. So, the Akatsuki is gone? He asked in a whisper. Naruto nodded. Yup, I believe so. I think that the remaining members split up. Looks like the rest of us are safe. Gaara nodded. That's good. I know that you won't appreciate it or care for that matter. But I am sorry about what happened. Tsunade is not going to be happy, or any of the clan heads for that matter. What do you think you're going to do now? She was thoughtful for a moment. I think I'm going to spend the night here, maybe head out and travel. I'll come back and visit though, she said thoughtfully. Gaara was quiet for a few seconds. Are you sure that you won't stay here? At least for a while? He pleaded. She frowned and grabbed his hand. Thanks for the offer, but I need some time to myself, adjust. I'll probably meet up with some old clients of Jiraiya's. See if I can get them to work for me or something. He nodded in understanding, even if he didn't particularly like it. I'm gonna head out early tomorrow. If I can I'll stop by, but if not, thanks for listening, she continued. She gave him a kiss on the cheek. She grabbed her bag and headed out for the hotel, leaving her older brother figure to his thoughts. Gaara narrowed his eyes before drooping with a silent groan. Naruto didn't deserve any of this. Konoha wasn't good for her. Maybe at some point it was, when she had people to talk to and wasn't constantly lying. But not anymore, not for a while now. Naruto was strong though, a Jinchuriki would have to be. Despite being older than the other, he looked up to her a lot. She would make it through this. It may even be good for her, he mused. Gaara made eye contact with the owner of the parlor, and gestured to his empty dish. A couple minutes later, a new sundae was in front of him. He ate it, continuing to think. He hated councils. They were stupid and ignorant, arrogant, as well, but in Suna, they at least knew their limits. Not for the first time, he was glad he lived in Suna. Sasuke huffed as he jogged up the staircase to Naruto's apartment. He was annoyed that Naruto hadn't bothered to come to any of the group meetings for the past week. Come to think of it, he hasn't seen the dobe since the attack. He suddenly felt a pang of guilt. He hasn't even bothered to see if he was okay, and he knew that none of the others hadn't either. He never mentioned it before. But he came back all those months ago because Orochimaru found a seal. The seal blocked most of his memories from that night. To say that he was confused would be a major understatement. He felt his world turn inside out to suddenly wake up with memories that weren't his, but clearly were his. He may or may not be ignoring them and just trying to get used to being in Konoha again. Walking up the hallway he froze. There was nearly no chakra, only a trace that was almost faded. What happened with Naruto? He bolted to the door and didn't even bother to knock, instead crashing straight in. Naruto. No answer. He frowned and walked into the kitchen, noticing how empty it all looked. His breath hitched when he saw the boxes. He ran to every other room only to find them all empty. He slowly walked back into the kitchen and sat on the table. What happened, the dobe? He thought worriedly. He rose his head from his arms when he noticed a letter. He sat up and grabbed both of them. He faintly noticed the box labeled Konoha 12 and Sensei's. He looked at the first letter. Of course he would tell Tsunade what's wrong. I wonder if he knows she woke up. He shuffled the letters and sighed when he saw one addressed to him. Let's see what this is, he grumbled. He couldn't stop the tears as he read even if he tried. Sasuke, I'm sorry that I couldn't say any of this as person. My guess is that you are reading this 7 to 10 days after Pain attacked. I guess that I should just jump right into it then. Okay, so, I've been banished. I'm not joking, so please don't assume I am. The day after the attack the civilian council held a meeting. Since it followed through I was banished. Nothing can be done about it. I already checked. As you know, I'm the Jinchuriki for the Nine Tails, so it wasn't exactly a surprise. It was bound to happen sooner or later. It came close when you left a few years ago, but Tsunade prevented it. But as you know, she wasn't able to this time. I'm sorry that I didn't talk to you before I left, but I have a few other things I really need to tell you and they're important. I need you to trust me, if you can. First off, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl, but, as you can guess, I didn't exactly grow up with the safest background. I didn't tell you any of this because it was a promise I made to your older brother that I would watch over you. I guess I did a great job of that, huh? Don't go all murder crazy now. I know you're faking it. Your excuse was terrible, about getting even more power. Itachi was the one who asked me to make the seal in the first place. I begged him to take you with him. As his younger brother, you two needed each other. He refused, having been asked by the third Hokage to spy on the Akatsuki. So, I did the next best thing I could think of. I promised to watch over you. We both know how that turned out. But I know that Itachi would be proud of you, that you came back. He really loved you. Now the next thing, I assume you figured out something was wrong with that night. There were only 7 people that knew what happened. The third Hokage, the 2 council elders, Danzo, Itachi, Jiraiya and I. The third, Danzo, and Jiraiya died as you know. But since Tsunade is the new Hokage, she is also aware, so only 5 now know, well 6 once you read this. The truth is that the Uchiha clan was planning an uprising in Konoha. The council argued on what point of action to take. Hiruzen decided that they would only kill the main supporters, mainly Fugoku and the elders. But that same night Danzo lied to Itachi, giving him a mission that he claimed was legalized. He killed the clan on fake orders, only sparing you out of love. He came to give a mission report for the Hokage. When they found that it was all fraud, they figured it was Danzo, but they didn't have any solid proof. Itachi was completely crushed when he found out what he did. He came to me and cried, pleading that it wasn't real. He cried himself to sleep after he told me everything. I was upset since I was a close friend of your family's, so instead of going with him, I promised I would watch over you. He left the next morning, barely having time to say goodbye. It's up to you whether or not you believe me. Just know that I'm sorry that I let you down more than I can say. You deserved better. Itachi loved you more than you know. Sorry this happened. Uzumaki and Naruto. P.S. I'm sure that Tsunade would let you see the files if you were to ask. Sasuke cried, picking up the picture that fell out once he opened the letter. He gasped when he saw it. He remembered that day so clearly. Ever since Orochimaru took off the seal, he always wondered if the blonde girl that was in the photo was related to the dobe. But now they were the same person. He felt so dumb. He always called the blonde girl Neru. Oh, Kami! I tried to kill my sister. He started to hyperventilate. He loved that girl like family. She was always around when Itachi was. Or even when he wasn't, she was his best friend. Even before the academy, they knew each other since they were walking. She was pretty much an Uchiha, and he tried to kill her, his sister, his best friend. He stood up, knocking the old wooden chair onto the floor. He gripped his hair tight, asking it not to be true. How could they do this to Naruto? How could he do this? How did any of this happen? He blacked out. 1 hour later. Tsunade frowned. She sent the Uchiha to go get the blonde over an hour ago. Why wasn't he back yet? She sighed, spinning the empty glass on the table. Shizen! Shizen yelped and came crashing into the office. Yes, Lady Tsunade? She gasped out, panting. She sighed. Go get Sasuke from Naruto's house, please. And fast. Shizen nodded as she turned and left. Not even 20 minutes later Shizen came in crying. Tsunade was immediately on alert and ran over to her old apprentice, Shizen. What's wrong? What happened? She looked up shocking, the Hokage by how many tears were coming out of such a small frame. Shizen hiccuped and then coughed to catch her breath. Sasuke is in the hospital. I found him passed out at Naruto's. It looked like hyperventilation. There were so many boxes. I think Naruto left. There was a letter addressed to you, she replied hastily. She gave the elder woman the letter shakily. Tsunade's eyes were wide. Who has Sasuke? Sakura. Tsunade nodded and grabbed the letter hesitantly. Why would she leave? She kept asking herself. Go see if he's alright. I'll come check in on him later on. She nodded and left to her duties. Tsunade sat back down in her chair and only looked at the letter. About 5 minutes later she slowly opened the letter. She was torn between A. Leaving the village completely. B. Wrecking the village completely. C. Crying and drinking sake. Lots and lots of sake. Tsunade. Hey, how are you doing? My guess is that you woke up yesterday from coma. Welp, a lot has happened in that time as you can presume. My guess is that Sasuke is either freaking out or in the hospital. Either way, have fun with him. I told him the truth about the massacre. I would greatly appreciate it if you let him see the files, for me please. I bet that none of this makes any sense and you're asking yourself, why on earth would that brat tell Sasuke what happened? It wasn't her place. Well, the truth is that I was very close to the Uchihas. I was best friends with Shisui and Itachi. Itachi gave me permission to tell Sasuke whenever needed, so, if it was anybody's business it would have been mine. Now you're asking yourself why it's needed and why now. Remember a few years ago, when Sasuke originally left, how close I was to being banished? Well, the thing is this, after Pain attacked you were in coma. As you are aware, not only that but since the attack was devastating, the clan heads also had their plates full. The day after the attack the civilian council held a meeting. You know what happened. I probably don't need to say what happened, but I will anyway. I've been banished. Don't blame yourself, you had no way of knowing. I left about a week ago. It's not like I expected it not to happen. After all, nobody visited me, or checked if I was okay. Why would they? Anyway, I'm sorry. Whatever you do, don't get upset with Sasuke. He doesn't deserve it. Everything that happened with him, I let it happen because I thought it best. I don't care what you do with anyone else, just don't harm Sasuke. We were siblings when we were younger. We always will be. There was a seal that blocked all of his memories. It's gone now, so he remembers me. The real me that was his sister figure. Don't hurt him. Thank you for everything. I am not that upset about leaving the village. Jiraiya was the one who convinced me to come back. They took more away from me than even they took from you. Just know that even with my heritage, my so-called friends, you and Sasuke were the only people I cared for, to be honest. Shizen as well. I'm sorry, good luck. I know that I let you down just as much as I let Sasuke down. I wish I could have fixed everything. But I can't, and maybe it's for the best. Love always. Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. Tsunade cried and dropped the letter. She froze when she saw a thin black string coming out of the envelope. She knew that she shouldn't have picked it up. She knew exactly what it was, but she did it anyway. No! Please, no! She cried in a hoarse voice. The ANBU on guard were all confused, but they stood their ground, knowing their place. She put the necklace on, walked over to the files room and got the massacre case. Walking over to the hospital, she didn't stop crying, waiting for the teen to wake up. XXX. Sasuke woke to familiar beeping. It took him a moment to remember everything, and when he did, tears sprang to his eyes. His best friend was banished, and it was all his fault. He sat up. Bringing his knees to his chest and his head to his knees, he cried, pulling on his hair. He jumped when he felt somebody pull his hand away and tread their own hand through his black tresses. He choked when he saw that Tsunade was crying as well. They stayed in complete silence for a few minutes. Not that either of them minded. It was comforting and they both needed it. Nothing can last forever. Sakura burst into the room, full of worry. Sasuke-kun, are you okay? What happened? Did Narabaka say something to you? What did he do? She went on and on. Sasuke grit his teeth as he chucked a pillow at the pink-haired girl. She dodged barely. Tsunade sighed. Sakura, why don't you come back in a few hours? Sakura started to object. Leave, Sakura! Tsunade yelled. She eeped as she ran out of the room, starting to cry herself. The village leader sighed as she looked at the Uchiha. She wasn't kidding when she said that she told him and that he remembered, she thought to herself. She was surprised when Sasuke leaned into her embrace instead of pulling away. Strangely enough, she didn't mind. She knew that they needed each other right now. They sat content for a few more minutes. Sasuke kept muttering how it was all his fault. Sasuke, here you go. Naruto asked me to give these to you. This wasn't your fault and she wouldn't want you to think otherwise. Sasuke sat back up and wiped his tears. He looked at Tsunade. Her heart broke. He looked so vulnerable. Thanks, he whispered. He grabbed the files and got even more upset as he read. After about 15 minutes he closed the file and threw it onto the nightstand. It already had over a dozen get well cards. He shook his head, too tired to even wipe them off. Great, my brother killed the clan. But it was all false. It was all a lie. The thing I'd been working towards isn't even real. And now my damn sister, my best friend, got banished because of me. Or would have. But still. And now I have who the hell knows who, probably Sakura, getting me get well cards. Then they just ignore Naruto, who saved them all. What the hell is wrong with everybody? He asked. He threw his head back when he saw that the Hokage had her necklace back. He remembered how happy the dobe was when he told people about it. It was one of her only gifts that she got. It just seemed more real now that Tsunade had it back. He thought to himself about how hard that must have been for her to take it off. She always had it on. Tsunade scoffed. Like I did any better. Did you know that it was her that convinced me to come back here? To be the great Hokage? It's all a joke. She got quieter as she spoke. He shook his head. He didn't know, but it sounded like something only she could do. They talked for a while, not ready to be alone in their loss. She answered any questions he may have. They just told each other about memories or troubles they had, mainly with the village. So do you want to go with me to the council meeting? You'll probably want to tell them a few things, Tsunade said sarcastically. Sasuke laughed bitterly. I would love to. She snorted and shook her head. They both got up and headed for the door. After the council meeting, I know I'm really sorry, but if I were to write the council meeting which I did, it turned into this huge rant. It didn't really fit. Everybody knows Naruto was banished. That she is female but not her heritage. Konoha 12 got their letters. Most were disgusted in the village. Others, like Sakura, thought they did the right thing. Tsunade and Sasuke surprisingly got closer. But overall something was missing in the village that only a few recognized. The wind stopped blowing. The world lost its color. Sasuke tried to get closer to some of them, mainly because he knew that Naruto would want him to try and be happy. But also, they would ask him questions about her since they all knew he knew her the best. They all mostly ignored Sakura since she saw nothing wrong with what happened. But it was and probably never will be the same. Naruto exhaled as she pulled on her ninja sandals. She paused at the door to look at her reflection in a mirror. Her hair was in a French braid that reached the bottom of her shoulder blades. She wore a basic navy blue tank top, black ANBU pants that were taped. She also wore a long navy blue cloak. She decided to wait to put on her face mask until she left Suna. It funnily reminded her of her previous senseis. If you could even call Kakashi that, but whatever. She shook her head and left her hotel room, backpack on her shoulders. After the walk to the gates, she smiled when she saw the Gaara and Temari there. The coppery head walked up to them and decided that the sooner she finished her goodbyes, the less time she would need to spend in this scorching heat. Hey guys. They both smiled. Where's Kankuro? She asked after a few minutes. Gaara glared into the endless sand as Temari sighed. He said that it was too early to get up, but he asked us to give this to you. I guess he had extra wood from his dolls or something, she said as she handed the package to the younger blonde nearly hesitantly. Naruto, however, only snorted. She would agree if she didn't need to get a move on. Naruto made a face of confusion as she grabbed the package. She felt around the box and shook it, but she couldn't figure out what it was. She tore away the paper and opened the box. She smiled softly as she took it out. Inside was a mask similar to an Anbiyu's, but it was a fox. It was a dusty white and the whiskers were red. I told him not to do, Temari started, but was cut off by a hug. It's great, tell him I love it, okay? Naruto stated as she pulled away from the hug. Temari didn't even bother to show her surprise from the hug. I'm glad you like it. I'll tell him. She smiled, nodding when she turned back to Gaara. They stayed for a minute until Gaara spoke up. Temari, can you give us a minute? She nodded, smiling at her friends before heading back. Naruto willed away tears as she knew that she was about to part from yet another friend. But she knew it was for the best. They just stared at each other for a while. Naruto, he started, making sure that he had her attention. She nodded, seeming to hold her breath. You changed me those years ago. If not for you, I don't know where I would be now. I am the Kage of my village. I have a family. people to protect and people who admire me. You gave me what I have never thought to be possible. You changed my life for the better. But now yours was taken. I'm sorry this happened to you. I really am. Is there anything I can do before you go? He said quietly yet sincerely, never breaking eye contact. She took a shaky breath as she stepped up to hug him goodbye. You deserve it. I just need some time. I'm glad you changed. You always had this. You just never realized it. Thank you. I'll come by again, don't worry. He nodded reluctantly. They talked for a few minutes until it was time for Gaara to go. Stupid paperwork. Tsunade sneezes. Naruto stared out of the gates for a minute. Gold. It was just like individual grains of the rare substance. She looked down at her face mask. It was black. When she put it on, it pulled up till the bridge of her nose, masking her mouth, nose, and more importantly her whiskers. She put on the ANBU mask that now shielded her oceanic eyes. She finally pulled on the hood to her cloak that hid the last vital piece of her identification. Golden hair, bluest eyes, and whiskers no longer visible. Nobody could tell that this figure was Naruto. Good, that was the point. She started her journey, just walking with no destination in mind. XXX. 1 year later, Naruto is now 16. A cloaked figure sighed as she stepped foot in the bar. She ignored the curious yet cautious looks as she made her way to a table in the back. She politely waited for the waiter as she scanned the area, hiding a frown when she felt eyes on her. The person watching her was good, but she couldn't help but wonder, thinking why they would be watching her of all people. There was no way that anybody could have any knowledge of who she was, unless they have been monitoring her for a while. The frown deepened. This person had to be good at concealing themselves. Most likely a genjutsu specialist, she mused to herself. Hello, what can I get for you, sir? The waitress asked. Naruto managed to stop herself from groaning. Why did it matter? It wasn't her job to stress over her gender. Her job was to frickin' take her order. Kami, people these days. A bottle of stronger sake and some rice, please, she said quietly. Her waitress eyes widened. Oh, I'm so sorry, miss. I'll get that right away. She hurried off just in time to miss Naruto's wine. She looked down at her lap and thought. Too busy talking with the fox about what to do next, she missed the waitress bring her order. Having a few bites of rice, keeping her face masked through genjutsu, she leaned back. The presence she felt earlier was back. She didn't know if they were hostile or not. If they were, wouldn't they stay hidden until her guard was down? She finished her bottle of sake and left the money on the wooden table. She sighed contentedly when she stepped outside. The wind caressed her cloak. She frowned when she looked down. All of those missing neens really did a number on her apparel. She fought the urge to whine. This was what she wore when she was with Ero-san and when she was younger. Of course, it would wear down over the many years, but this was her favorite. As she walked to her hotel room, she figured it'd be best if she got some new clothes. XXX. She inserted the key to the hotel room that would be hers for the next week. She loved this town. While she was with Jiraiya, she discovered that she actually had a bit of skill with gambling, unlike Tsunade. She was currently in a popular gambling town located in Spring Country. She grimaced at the thought of how she helped the Daimyo. While bandits were more than easy to take down, the group was huge. But it was worth it. After all, here she was. She opened the door and looked around. It was a pretty basic room. The bed was near the wall, opposite of the wall with the dresser. In one of the corners there was a TV. Next to the small desk there was the bathroom. She resisted the urge to squeal at the sight of the soaker tub. She hasn't had a hot bath for a few months now. Only the showers and the rivers. Going back to make sure the door was locked, she also put up a few privacy seals. When she was happy with her lonesomeness, she took off her cloak and threw it on the desk. Both of her masks soon followed. She rubbed her neck tiredly as she stepped back into the bathroom. Turning on the water so that it was hot, she took off her clothes. Slipping into the steaming water, she relaxed as the water soothed her tense muscles. It felt so nice. After a couple hours later, she slipped back out. Wrapping a towel around her hair, she dried off the rest of her body. Grabbing another fluffy towel, she wrapped herself, she secured it and stepped out of the room. Only to stop in her tracks based on two things. First off, she was no longer alone. And two, there was a kunai at her throat. She cursed herself for not being more careful. This was the same presence that she felt on and off all day. She never even sensed the intruder. She tried to talk to the fox, only to cry internally when she found him either ignoring her or sleeping. Either way, she would get the fox back for this, assuming she made it out of this alive. Clearing her throat, she slowly started to raise her hands, to tell them she meant no harm. She gasped when she felt a strong arm come around her side, through her waist so her arms were pulled back down. The arms were surprisingly warm considering that the room grew colder since she discovered that there was an intruder. She frowned when she still couldn't get an exact chakra signature. Okay, you win. What do you want? She asked stoically. The body behind her relaxed a bit but still didn't put down the kunai. She barely suppressed a shudder when the voice came, ghosting across her neck and ear. Just came to say hello. Where's the harm in that, Neru? She froze. When it all registered, she ignored the kunai and spun around, backing up. Hell's your problem? What are you even doing here? She hissed. The man in question stayed in the shadows, but you could see his silhouette shrug. Like I said before, just came to say hello. I mean, it's not like I had anything better to do. I also wanted to come see my best friend again. Was I wrong to do that? He asked, raising an eyebrow. She stayed put, trying to stay calm on the outside, which was the complete opposite of what she was on the inside. I don't know, are you gonna go join another secret organization? Just leave again? She asked evenly. The man in question sighed. No, are you? He replied. She rose an eyebrow. Leave? I got kicked out. I didn't leave on my own terms. The man nodded. This wasn't exactly how he planned this little reunion to go. They stayed quiet for a minute. Naruto sighed and sat down on the bed. Are you going to explain why you're here or not? The man sighed. Well, since my little secret organization was ruined thanks to a little fox, I decided to travel on my own. Then I got wind of an exceptional fighter that popped out of nowhere about a year ago. Just decided to see if they knew who my friend was. I missed her, you know, after almost 10 years, he said lightheartedly. He sighed when he saw Naruto glare. This really wasn't going how he wanted. Well, you never answered my question. Are you just going to leave after all of this? She said, trying not to yell. I promise I'm here to stay. At least not until you go with me, he replied. It was quiet for a few seconds. They both tried not to cry. He didn't know that she would be this upset. She was just so mad at the moment. She nodded and stood up, walking across the room and giving the other a fierce hug that he returned. She wrapped her arms around his neck, the towel holding her hair having fell off when she sat down on the bed. Her hair was still wet. He wrapped his bigger arms around her waist, picking her up a few inches. Naruto buried her head in the guy's chest. Thank Kami you're back. I missed you so much, Itachi, she whispered. The other nodded and they only held each other. Itachi nuzzled his best friend's neck, tears springing to his eyes. Too long, far too long. Naruto nuzzled further into Itachi's neck. He smelled like something between ash and honey. She found that she liked the smell, familiar, even at a long distance. He tightened his hold on her waist and walked over to the bed, sitting down. Both of them just enjoyed seeing each other after so many years. After a few minutes, Naruto remembered that she was only in a towel and went to go change. Coming back out in a tank top and shorts, she sat down near the desk. Taking a look at how much he changed, she hid a frown. He wore a plain black shirt and ANBU pants with fishnet, simple yet attractive. So, how have you been? She asked, not knowing how to exactly handle the situation. She never really thought that they would meet up again, even if that was what she always wanted to do. Nothing much. It was a pretty big shock when the leader of Akatsuki died. After we broke up, I was just traveling around, then I heard of someone extremely powerful. I tried to find her. Not every day you run into techniques like yours, you know, he teased. She sighed. Not like anybody can handle the way I fight either. I hear that it's not exactly healthy. He chuckled quietly. Yeah, I guess not. What about you? She looked down for a minute. Pretty much the same. Mainly staying out of fire country though. Just like you, I guess. What do you mean by you heard of me, by the way? I thought I did a pretty good job with witnesses. He mocked shock. Do you not stay updated? I thought that the Shadow Fox would know better. She rose an eyebrow. Shadow Fox? That's kinda sad. In addition to ironic, he sked and pulled out the latest bingo book. Says the person with who has relations with a fox and has a fox mask. Check out page 22. Naruto glared at him. Hardy har har, he smiled. She rose an eyebrow. First off, that's depressing how general that is. Secondly, how did you figure that that was me? He smirked. It's not like I had anywhere to go. I mean, if it wasn't you, I just keep looking. She looked away, hiding a smile. I guess. Now what's yours like? I took mine out, however. It actually has info. Rank is S as well. But I'm at 3 million. So there, she laughed. Maybe I'll catch up one day then. Their chuckles died down. The air was so thick it was almost awkward. So, what do you plan on doing? Itachi asked. She rubbed her face tiredly, which made sense since it was almost 3 a.m. I don't know, sleep? I booked the room for a week. After that I was thinking about heading to Miss for a while. They still have a lot of needs after that huge bloodline purge. I heard they got a new kage recently. What about you? He sighed. To be honest, I've been looking for you for the last year. So stick with you. Whether or not you like it or not, you're pretty much stuck with me. Silence. Okay, well, it's getting really late. Are you going to get a room? She asked. He hid a smirk and shook his head. She looked confused. What? Why not? What are you going to do then? I'm staying with you. He nodded sagely. She looked baffled. Who said you could stay here? Can I not stay, Neru? I thought you missed me after so long. He hurt. She turned red. From embarrassment or anger he didn't know. He was having too much fun to care at the moment. He really missed her. She looked down and wringed her hands out, muttering about how unfair this all was. She threw her hands back up. You can't say that. How is that fair? Fine, stay, I don't care anymore. I'm too tired to deal with this, she replied. He smirked, then couldn't hide his shock when she came and pushed him off their bed. Asterisk her bed, but what's the difference? He popped his head off of the floor. His eyes widened ever so slightly. What was that for? He asked. She sat back up from the covers and smirked. What? I'm not sleeping on the couch. It's my room after all. He narrowed his eyes. There is no couch, she gasped. What? Oh, I am so sorry, I never realized that. My bad, he pouted. Why can't I sleep on the bed with you? She leaned back on her arms on the bed. Because there's a nice spot right there. She pointed to the door downwards. He gaped. What, am I your dog? She shrugged and slipped back into bed, turning off the lamp in one fluid movement. I don't know, maybe. It's not my problem. Good night, Itachi. With the lights off there was no point to hide his sulking, nor her relieved smile. Naruto sighed happily as she snuggled deeper into her pillow. It's so warm. Nice morning, she thought. She froze when she realized that her pillow was moving. What? She opened her eyes and growled. I told you not on the bed. She yelled as she pushed Itachi back off. She threw the blankets back over her head. So much for a good morning, she mumbled to herself. Itachi stood back up pretty fast. Good morning to you too, you know. You didn't have to push me off though, he said dryly. What was wrong with the floor? He drew a blank momentarily. It was very uncomfortable. He tried very hard. She threw a pillow at him and went to go change. Itachi just sighed. Why must she be difficult? He thought as he fixed his ponytail. Naruto came out a few minutes later in more civilian-like clothes, simple black pants and a red tank top with a jacket. So, what now? Itachi asked as he finished, discreetly. Checking her out, she rose an eyebrow. Well, I am going to go through the town, gamble, shop and eat. What are you going to do? He moved to the door with her following. Gamble, shop and eat. After you, he replied as he opened the door, signaling her to go out with his arm. She scoffed and lightly pushed his arm as she walked out, hiding a soft smile. After they hit a smaller cafe for breakfast, they went to a couple other shops. What exactly are you looking for today? Itachi asked as he rubbed his hands together. She sighed. My other clothes were getting old. I've had them for a few years, ever since my training with the pervert, so I figured I could use a change. Do you have any other clothes? He shook his head. No, not really, though I could use a change as well. Later that day, Itachi groaned from off the grass. That flip really hurt. They got bored with the market around 7. Since it was late spring, the sun would still have a few more hours till it went down. So, they did what logical ninjas would do, spar. It wasn't going so great for Itachi. He didn't expect her to be so good. Seems like time gave her the ability to improve her skills. Ugh, that was harsh. Naruto laughed as she knelt down to his eye level. She hummed. No, it was a spar, a pretty sad one at that too. Were you even trying? He huffed as he glared, only gaining a smirk in response. Naruto pulled him back up and they headed back to the hotel. Once they got to the hotel, they sat on the bed on opposite ends eating some food they got from takeout. It was quiet as Itachi was trying to think of how to approach what was on his mind. Naruto sighed. What are you thinking about? If you want to ask something, just ask. Itachi glanced back up at her, then set his food down. I know you haven't been home for some time. He ignored Naruto's glare and continued. But I was wondering, how was Sasuke when you last saw him? Naruto's eyes lit up in recognition and let go of the home comment. She played with her rice for a bit, then sighed and set it down next to the ravens. First off, that's not my home, but he seemed pretty good. He lost the memory seal. That's why he came back. he seemed less distant as well, or at least to me, but I just screwed that up. But last I saw him, which was a week or so before Pain attacked, he seemed good, less Avenger-like. He nodded then stopped. That's good, but what do you mean by a week before the attack, and how would you screw that up? Didn't you talk to him at all? What happened? She looked down and saddened. Looking up, her eyes were sparkling with unshed tears, small bitter smile gracing her features. She told him what happened. As you know, Sasuke came back about 8 months before the attack. He would look at me strangely. He probably remembered me from when we were younger, in my girl form anyway. So anyway, Jiraiya died, then a few weeks later Pain attacked. I beat him pretty much by myself. Most of the others were helping civilians or passed out, or just too scared, not that you could really blame them. Nobody visited me. But then again, why would they? As you know, Konoha only saw me as a demon. That's why it's not my home. I don't have one. But the day after the attack I got banished. I had 24 hours, or else the ANBU would make sure that I couldn't harm anybody else. Or at least that's what they said, the civilian council. Tsunade and the clan heads were out of the meeting, that's how it passed. But I left that same night. But I couldn't just leave, so I wrote letters. Naruto started to cry silently as she talked. Itachi just listened intently, though he started to get more worried and upset the more he did. He held her hand but didn't say anything. I wrote to the graduating class and their senseis, but the hardest ones were Tsunade and Sasuke. But I couldn't just leave without giving him anything, so I told him about your mission. I also gave him a picture from his 7th birthday, the ones in the garden. I knew that it was bad not being there for him when he found out. I just left him there. I don't know how he's doing now or anything. But he knows now, and I just left him there when the only reason he came back was to know the truth. That's how I messed up. Itachi absorbed all he could but stayed silent. He knew that Sasuke was tough and that he would be okay. Inwardly he was somewhat relieved that Sasuke now knew. But looking at the blonde now, he couldn't help but wonder if it was the right call. He knew it was a good idea for Sasuke, but right now, it didn't seem that great to Naru. They stayed like that for a few minutes until Itachi spoke up. You know, Naruto, I still think that you did the right thing. Sasuke is strong. That's how I knew that he would be okay in your care when he was younger. But now he's older and more open, he'll be fine. So, you did the right thing, okay? Naruto looked at him and nodded hesitantly as she stopped crying. Thanks, Tachi, he smiled. They continued to talk for about another hour before they both fell asleep. Over the next week they did what Naruto was planning on originally, just with a +1. On the first day that they met up, they put an order for new clothes in, and they picked them up on the day that they were going to leave. They now stood by the town gates and started to head to the mist. Itachi wore pretty much the same thing as he did before. He still had fishnet, but it went to his elbows, and a black muscle shirt that had the Uchiha symbol embroidered on by Naruto in the bottom right corner. He had plain black shinobi sandals and a black cloak that clasped by the clan symbol again. To be honest, he was happy that he could wear it now, knowing that Sasuke knew what happened. Naruto, however, changed her attire quite a bit. She had black shorts that ended mid-thigh and black boots that went to her ankles, but had red stockings that went a couple inches above her knees. She wore a red tank top over long-sleeved fishnet that went around her ring finger. She actually grew attached to the title Shadow Fox. She ignored Kurama's boasting about how it was thanks to him that she got the title when she got her cloak. The cloak was longer and trained in the back with a hood. It was a charcoal gray and had the kanji for Shadow Kitsune on the back going down in a dark red. Naruto was only wearing her face mask right now and not her ANBU mask as they were walking through the opening. They weren't really talking, but that was fine for them. After a few hours of walking they decided to take a break for lunch. Naruto set up the camp and Itachi went to go get the food. Naruto finished with the campfire when she actually looked around. It was easy to tell that they were getting close since you could smell a lot of salt, mainly from the surrounding oceans to the country. Naruto sighed as she pulled over a log to sit on near the fire. Itachi came not too long after that with a few fish, nuts and berries. They snacked on the berries and nuts while the fish cooked. It wasn't long before Itachi spoke. So what made you decide to go to Mist?